Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. The libs over at Axios are biting their nails. For years, their strategy has been to fearmonger about President Trump's plans for mass deportations. It's fascist, they say, authoritarian, racist, and even un-American. Obviously, none of that's true, but that's been the bit now for so long. So what are they supposed to do now when their own polling data is showing that a wide swath of Americans are now saying that mass deportations don't sound so bad after all? By their own calculations through the Harris poll, half of all Americans, including 42% of Democrats, which is insane, now support mass deportations. Broken down by race or ethnicity, those in favor include 56% of whites, 45% of Latinos, and 40% of blacks. And even 30% of Democrats are willing to join 46% of Republicans in wanting to end birthright citizenship. The reasons why respondents answered the way they did comes down to these three things: increased crime rates, drugs, and violence, the additional cost to taxpayers that illegal immigration is having, and the risk of terrorism and other national security concerns. Axios spends the rest of its article trying to debunk Americans' fears on these issues, but guess what? The gaslighting isn't going to work because this isn't 2016 anymore. Back then, most people were so removed from the border crisis that it was easy to swallow the canard about Trump being racist and xenophobic for a stance on the border. But now under Biden, with the millions of illegals that he's allowed into the country and has provided all sorts of money and other benefits for, well, it's a lot harder to lie about that because Americans are now experiencing it for themselves firsthand. And you aren't going to tell them what they are seeing isn't really happening. Joining us now to discuss is Dr. Shay Bradley Farrell, the president of the Counterpoint Institute. Dr. Shay, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, Kara, thanks so much for having me. We've got some things to get out tonight for sure.
That we do. So I know you're actually on the ground at the border. Where exactly are you and what are you seeing?
I'm about 30 miles west of Del Rio, but I've been all down the border, probably about 150 miles in south central Texas. And I want to show you something. So here is the Rio Grande, and as you can see, I could easily swim across it or wade across it. But behind me is Trump's wall. But if you keep going down here, you'll see Governor Abbott's fence and a huge gap between Trump's wall and the fence. There are no Border Patrol at that gap, no Texas DPS. But you know what, Kara? It wouldn't matter if there were. What has been really impressed upon me is that the Border Patrol, if they arrest somebody or take them into custody, they have only 4 minutes to interview them because of the mass influx due to Biden's border policies. Usually they need an hour and a half. After they are processed, I've been to the processing facility, Firefly facility down the road here, they're immediately released into the interior of the United States. We pay as taxpayers for them to fly around or bus around or train around the U.S. We don't know who they are. They're not well vetted. A lot of what I have been told today by a county attorney in Kinney was that most of them will lose their IDs, even if they're arrested by Border Patrol. We don't know who they are. We cannot find through our record system with other countries. We don't have that kind of data to find who they are. The attorney told me today that the Border Patrol and the DPS are only catching about 20% of those coming across the border. And here's the deception of Biden's plan. This whole processing, it doesn't matter. It's a fake paperwork drill, Kara, because once people are released and we don't know who they are, they've got, 8-10 years before they're supposed to report. Now, I will say that Texas is doing its best to arrest people and also for trespassing and try to bring them on misdemeanor charges. But here, again, is the Biden policy. Then they have to release them back to Border Patrol, who will release them into the United States. If they can get SB 4 back into play, Governor Abbott's bill that is supposed to be make law enforcement be able to arrest and remove people. Now, if they can get that back into play, we might actually have some real border security here in Texas, Kara.